Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Amanda Nichols, Communications Director here at Our Revolution, and I'm so glad to welcome all of you to our live climate fight back call tonight. You can help us get things rolling by introducing yourself in the chat, tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're tuning in tonight. We're going to be strategizing with leaders from top climate groups, all coming together in coalition to fight back against Trump and the oil oligarchs. Trump wants to drill, baby, drill, but that doesn't mean that we are powerless to stop the worst of this administration and advance legislation to protect our communities, make polluters pay, end their handouts. We're going to sketch out some of our fights that lie ahead tonight. And in just a few minutes, you'll be hearing from Los Angeles fire survivor Maya Golden Krasner, Aru Shiny Ajay, the director of Sunrise Movement, Eric Pica, president of Friends of the Earth, Jamie Minden, organizing director of Zero Hour, and Tim Donaghy and Adrian Lowry with Greenpeace USA. If you have any questions that you want to ask the guests, please put those in the Q&A. We'll be taking a look at the comments as well, but the questions go in the Q&A section here in the Zoom. So real quick, let me read a few names in the chat, see who's tuning in already. We've got Lois in South Lake Tahoe. Paulina is in Vancouver. Brenda in Little Rock, Arkansas. We've got Peggy also in Arkansas. And she says she's here tonight because she wants to participate in making a better future for her grandchildren. So love to hear that. We also have Carol in Oakland, California, John in Portland, Oregon, Sandra from Chapel Hill, maybe that's North Carolina, and Cheryl in Decatur. She says she's worried about many things, but natural land preservation and climate change are foremost in her mind. And we've got Dalton in Ohio, Thomas out in Oregon, Chris from Oceanside, California, and Bruce from Montrose in rural Colorado. Once again, if you're just tuning in, my name's Amanda Nichols, and I'm the Communications Director here at Our Revolution. We're just about to kick off our live climate town hall, and I want you all to keep boosting the chat, share this out on your socials. We're also live on our social media channels, so you can tell your friends to pop over there if they're not in the Zoom room. We're going to be breaking down the moment that we're in right now. It's been a rough couple weeks with the kickoff of the Trump administration, but we're mapping actions that we can take in the near term to fight back in this pivotal time. So we know that Trump is bringing together this unholy alliance of big oil and big tech. You're going to hear a lot about that in just a few minutes. But know that we are not powerless in this moment, and there's a lot that we can do. So tonight, again, we're going to be hearing from leaders like Aru Shiny Ajay, the director of Sunrise Movement, Eric Pica, president of Friends of the Earth, Jamie Minden, the organizing director of Zero Hour, and Tim Donaghy and Adrian Lowry with Greenpeace USA. We'll also hear directly from Maya Golden Krasner, who is a survivor of the LA fires. She's going to tell us her personal experience with that side of the climate catastrophe. We're going to be kicking things off in less than a minute, so let me read a few more names. I see the captain in Huntsville, Alabama, just goes by the captain. We've got Gloria in New Mexico, Andre in New Jersey, George Letty in LA, Iris in Reno, Nevada. Look at how everybody comes together from all across the country. Janet in New Mexico. We've got Aaron in Chicago, Illinois. Tanya in New Paltz, New York. Our movement truly does span coast to coast and everything in between. And this is that one issue that impacts all of our lives, every single one of us, no matter who we are, where we're from, what our background is. We're all going to need a safe and healthy planet for a safe and healthy future. And that's why I'm glad to see so many of you tuning in. We've got Celeste in Illinois, Kathy in Wayzata, Minnesota, Jody in San Bernardino. Welcome, everybody. With that, we're going to kick off this call, and I'm going to hand it over to our host for the evening, Our Revolution Executive Director, Joseph Gavargis. Joseph, take it away.
Thanks, Amanda Nichols. Brothers and sisters, good evening. My name is Joseph Kivarghese. I'm the executive director of Our Revolution. I want to welcome each and every one of you to our climate town hall. We're going to be talking about how our coalition is coming together to fight back against Trump and the oil oligarchs. Our speakers tonight include LA fire survivor Maya Golden Krasner, Aru Shiny AJ with the Sunrise Movement, Eric Pica with Friends of the Earth, Jamie Minden with Zero Hour, and Tim Donahue and Adrian Lowry with Greenpeace USA. But before I bring up our guest this evening, I want to spend a few minutes reflecting on the current political moment. Right now, we're all living through a rupture, a break in American history. We're seeing the Trump regime align with some of the most wealthy and powerful people on earth to privatize our government and plunder our tax dollars. Within hours of taking power, Donald Trump began aggressively executing a systematic plan to break apart our system of checks and balances that our founders put forward to counter the dangers of concentrated political power and concentrated economic power. His orders to purge career civil servants and to even dismantle entire agencies are a direct challenge to the power given to Congress in our Constitution. And even now, we're seeing Trump openly begin to defy the courts as a direct challenge to the role of the federal judiciary. We're at the beginning of an unprecedented power grab by a president who wants to be an imperial president, and he's aided and abetted by the billionaire class. If anything, it's going to be up to us to stop our country's descent or slow slide into authoritarian capitalism. This is the model, the form of government that other countries have fallen into, like Russia, India, China, and Hungary. As I recently wrote in The Nation, President Biden, in his farewell address to the country, warned us about oligarchy rising. But by then it was a little too little and a little too late. During the campaign, we saw Trump forge an unholy alliance between oil and tech oligarchs. In April 2024, Trump convened the oil and gas oligarchs in Mar-a-Lago, and he demanded $1 billion in campaign contributions. And right now, we're beginning to see Donald Trump pay his benefactors back by declaring a fake energy emergency and by opening up federal lands to fossil fuel distraction. Trump also cut a deal with Silicon Valley. The big tech oligarchs want to mine crypto and develop AI without any governmental oversight or intervention. And importantly, the data centers that Donald Trump's going to be helping them construct is going to be fueled by the dirty energy that the oil and gas industry are going to extract. The bottom line is there's an unholy alliance between these oligarchs. They've got a plan to enrich themselves and destroy our planet in the process. And that being said, given the level of systematic assault on our way of governance, we have to be especially ready to fight back. And that's what this call is going to be about. We're going to talk about how we stop the oil and gas oligarchs and ultimately the tech oligarchs from plundering our government. But an important part of that is that we're going to have to make it unacceptable for Democrats to collaborate with Donald Trump. It's important to remember in this moment that some Democratic senators voted to confirm Chris Wright, a fracking billionaire who's now the Secretary of Energy. Some Senate Democrats like Ruben Gallego and Kristen Gillibrand voted to confirm an AI billionaire AI investor, Doug Burgum, as Secretary of Interior. And he testified at his hearing that it was essential to continue to drill for fossil fuels in order to win the AI race against China. Now, that's bullshit, but that's what they have been pushing, and some Democrats are going along. Brothers and sisters, this collaboration between Democrats and the oligarchs has to end. We need the Democratic Party to unite in opposition and be a true opposition party in this moment in history. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a strategic opportunity. The upcoming tax fight and the budget reconciliation process is going to give us a chance to push back and block the money pipeline for the oil oligarchs. Right now, these executives are looking to expand their subsidies. They're looking to get more loans, get more tax breaks. And that is an opportunity, that will be an opportunity for all of us to get Democrats to hold the line and say enough is enough. The GOP has got a tight margin in the U.S. House. That means that Democrats have the leverage to extract concessions if we get them to stick together. And so with that, I want to encourage everyone to begin to join with us to tell Democrats to stand in unity against all of Donald Trump's nominees. And then we're going to have to stand in unity against the policies that they're going to be pursuing as the tax and reconciliation fights come up. I also want to encourage everyone on this call to join us in taking action as part of our citizen action team. We're going to have to put pressure on every member of Congress within their congressional districts. We're going to have to be on Capitol Hill in order to make sure that our voices get heard in this process. So I want to invite everyone to join our citizen action team. We're going to be doing a training this Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. And that will be our next action after this call. With that, I want to bring up our first speaker tonight, Jamie Minden. Jamie's a senior at American University. She's the organizing director of Zero Hour, which is an international youth-led climate justice movement. Jamie, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about the new United to End Polluter Handouts campaign that we're launching and the urgency of this moment.
Absolutely, Joseph. Thank you. Like many people in my generation, I've grown up surrounded by the reality of the climate crisis from a really young age. I'm from the Bay Area, California, a region that has endured long-term drought beginning a few years before I was born. The Bay Area is a place where wildfires led school to be canceled for smoke days by the time I was in high school, and my neighborhood to be flooded during historic rains by the time I was in college. I've been a climate activist since the age of 13, finding the time between working multiple jobs throughout high school to organize young people in my community to fight for climate justice. Now, I know there's a lot going on right now. The services many of us rely on to get by day to day are being cut left and right. Our undocumented neighbors are facing horrific dehumanization and terrifying detentions, and members of Congress are getting barred from entering government buildings, while petulant billionaires are granted access to our highest public offices. People much older and wiser than me are calling what Donald Trump is doing to our government a coup. The Trump administration's actions are overwhelming and distracting on purpose to keep people in reactionary mode rather than thinking ahead about defending ourselves. One thing we can't afford to lose sight of in this moment is climate change. And so I'm a student, and I want to take y'all to stats class and share some numbers about what went on 1 month last spring to put this all in a little bit of perspective, okay? So in April of 2024, the Philippines, Thailand, Bangladesh, and India all faced deadly heat waves, and temperatures in India were as high as 126 degrees Fahrenheit in regions with unequal access to air conditioning, resulting in over 700 heat deaths in 2024 alone. In May, Brazil's Rio Grande do Sul faced up to half of the annual average rainfall over just 10 days, killing over 100 people. That same month, Floods in Kenya took over 225 lives and displaced over 200,000 residents. And still in May that year, in 2024, Puebla, Mexico faced several feet of hail beginning in the middle of a heat wave. And that heat season was so severe that it killed over 125 people. That was all over 1 month. And as we've seen from the devastating effects of hurricanes and wildfires in the US over the past few months, the climate crisis is not in the future, it is right now. Meanwhile, fossil fuel companies are taking $20 billion a year in federal government handouts from our hard-earned tax dollars while jacking up prices for US consumers and raking in record-breaking profits. Here's the kicker. With business as usual, in terms of subsidies, and oil and gas companies will receive more than $170 billion in the United States in the next 10 years in handouts from our taxpayer money. I don't know about you, but those numbers make me angry. Angry at how unfair it is that the fossil fuel industry is literally raking in trillions of dollars in profits despite destroying so many lives, while we pay to keep their industry profitable. Angry that my hard-earned tax dollars are what's keeping the fossil fuel industry alive and well. These billionaires should be tried in court for the effects that their industry is having, not advising our president on energy policy. That being said, we know that ending fossil fuel subsidies in the US would stop massive amounts of fossil fuel extraction projects in their tracks, keeping oil and gas in the ground. Because without our hard-earned tax dollars, a substantive amount of fossil fuel projects would not be viable investments. That is a huge opportunity for climate justice. We have the chance to hit polluters where it hurts, in their pockets. Our hard-earned government tax dollars should support a healthy society and a sustainable future. Government is meant to support investments in the public like schools, healthcare, affordable housing, and firefighters. We have the chance to stop the worst effects of climate change. Every % of a degree of warming that is prevented saves countless lives. But the time we have left is short. This is 0 hour to act on the climate crisis. The government has no plan to save us. We have to step up to the plate. And we're in a moment right now where billionaire oligarchs feel so entitled. They feel entitled to our government, to our Social Security information, to our Medicaid money. They feel entitled to stop elected members of Congress from entering the Department of Education. Oligarchs feel entitled to recklessly extract every last drop of oil and gas they can from the depths of our earth, regardless of the fact that it is killing us. They don't get to take our money and our lives and our loved ones and our homes. We can't be on the defense anymore. Asking politely for climate justice is just not working. We need to go after these billionaires' money, which is why this coalition is uniting to end polluter handouts. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Jamie Minden. She is the organizing director of 0 Hour and a key organizer of our new United to End Polluter Handouts initiative. I now want to bring up Maya Golden Krasner. She is a survivor of the LA fires. She's also a lawyer with the Center for Biological Diversity. And part of the reason we wanted to have Maya here is not only to illustrate how the climate crisis is destroying, upending lives, but to also to show how people are fighting back. Already, New York and Vermont have led the country to hold polluters accountable by establishing climate super funds that basically tax these companies for the harms that they cause in our climate. And that's something that Maya and her allies are starting to fight for in California. So welcome to our call, Maya.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So my name is Maya Golden Krasner. I'm a resident of Altadena, and I'm an attorney at the Center for Biological Diversity and deputy director of the Climate Law Institute at the center. And so on January 7th, I was at home when my power suddenly went out, and I was working on the Climate Superfund bill that I'll talk about in a minute. And so with large tree branches blowing in the road, we quickly realized that we needed to evacuate, and my family and I scrambled around trying to catch our cats in the dark, and then drove to a closed Starbucks to huddle against the crazy Santa Ana winds and use their Wi-Fi to find a place to stay for the night. We are still displaced, waiting for potable non-toxic water and for remediation to clean up the lead-contaminated ash that we have in our house. We're very lucky, though, that we've been able to stay with friends and relatives, and we're also really lucky that our house is still standing, though a lot of our quirky, diverse Altadena community is gone. So many of our friends' houses are gone, our synagogue and kids' grade school, favorite pizza places, coffee shops, community theaters, even including one outdoor theater that was built during the New Deal, are all gone. And many shops and restaurants in Altadena are owned by locals who lost both their businesses and their homes. And families, including many Black families who had built equity in their houses, lost their hard-earned generational wealth. California is a major historic oil producer that's also been home to dozens of billion-dollar climate disasters like these fires. And having inflicted, according to recent estimates, $275 billion in damages, the LA fires rank as one of the worst disasters in US history. Meanwhile, insurance giants are abandoning Californians. Communities are shouldering skyrocketing insurance rates. State Farm, which we have and are lucky to even have insurance, just asked for an emergency 22% rate increase. People are paying for climate chaos with their pocketbooks and their lives, such as from asthma, like my daughter and I have, made worse by smoke, from toxics in the ash that we're waiting to get cleaned up, from heat stroke, from hurricanes, and from floods. And state and local budgets are stretched to the brink as climate risks rise, putting public services at risk. Across our state, the costs of climate change are hurting working families, and unless something changes, Californians are going to continue to suffer the burden of escalating multi-billion-dollar costs. Oil, gas, and coal account for nearly 90% of carbon dioxide emissions and over 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So we know that the climate crisis is a fossil fuel crisis. For years, the fossil fuel industry has known that they are fueling our climate catastrophe, and instead of adjusting their products and operations, oil and gas oligarchs, or as we call them, oligarchs, have spread misinformation, blocked climate legislation, and continue to enjoy record profits, while meanwhile our communities quite literally burn. In 2023, just 4 companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell, and BP, made over $100 billion in profits, while communities were hit with these devastating climate impacts. It's absolutely unacceptable that these polluters face no responsibility to pay for the consequences they created. And that leaves the rest of us stuck with the multi-billion-dollar tab. And that's why it's time for all of us to say enough is enough. So in California, we are introducing a California Polluters Pay Climate Superfund bill. The bill is modeled on the federal law CERCLA that requires hazardous waste polluters to clean up their toxic messes, and the California Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Act that requires historic manufacturers of lead paint and gasoline to pay into a prevention fund. The bill would make the largest fossil fuel polluters pay a portion of their large profits to address the climate consequences that they created and help California to adapt to climate fuel disasters. So just a few examples about how these funds could be used. Measures to protect people from wildfires, such as home hardening in at-risk areas, installing microgrids in low-income communities to reduce energy costs and increase resilience, upgrading stormwater management systems to prevent flooding and increase water supplies during droughts, support for public sector workers who provide essential services during climate disaster responses. And those are just some of the many ways that the money could be used to prevent more climate change and adapt to what's already going on. And as Joseph said, Vermont and New York have already passed similar bills. And in California, we are already paying for big oil's climate destruction, not just with money, but with our lives. And that's why we need our own climate superfund bill to put billions of dollars in climate costs back onto the corporate polluters where they belong. But we can't stop there. We have to demand that our government stop the oil and gas industry's expansion and end government handouts to the very corporate polluters who are expanding climate impacts and harming communities while making their record profits, increasing prices at the pump, and eroding democracy. So when my community is rebuilt, it should be healthy and climate resilient. We want to rebuild our parks, add community solar, and community EV charging. The homes and businesses should be constructed with the most fire-resistant materials. Funding should go to support the firefighters who saved our house and first responders who treated the victims. Big oil bought Trump for almost $500 million in exchange for policies that encourage unfettered expansion of oil and gas and federal corporate handouts out of our taxpayer money. Meanwhile, Trump is cutting vital health, medical research, education, and housing programs. And it's time that we call for our government to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for supercharging the climate crisis and start investing in working families instead. Thanks.
Maya, thank you. And our hearts go out to you and all the families who've been affected by the tragic wildfires in California. And if this is, if anything, I think this is a wake-up call for our movement. And I would argue that it is a wake-up call for the other side. I feel like the oil and gas oligarchs are going for broke in this moment because they see what's coming, which is us fighting back to save our common home. Again, thank you. I want to encourage everyone on our call to who's in California to sign the petition to support the Make Polluters Pay initiative. We're going to be working with the coalition to put pressure on the governor and the state legislator to make this the law in California and create precedent for other jurisdictions. With that, I want to bring up our next speaker who's going to talk about how we apply this principle of accountability to the industry at the federal level. We've got a major tax fight, budget reconciliation fight that's coming up in Capitol Hill, and we need to be ready and organized because we know the industry is organized in this moment. And with that, I want to bring up Eric Pica, who is president of Friends of the Earth and one of the leading strategists behind our coalition, to talk about our plan to hold the industry accountable and to shut off the fossil fuel money pipeline. Eric, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Joseph. And I just want to say thank you to all the Our Revolution members, supporters, activists that are here on a Tuesday night. I guess it's Monday night. I'm sorry. It's the week. It's all flying together. Just to listen to this fight that we want to have, that we want to pick with the oil and gas industry. It's just amazing. I just want to say thank you for being here. And you heard from Maya, you heard from Jamie about the climate disasters that are impacting people's lives today, whether it's in Los Angeles, the fires in LA, whether it's the Hurricane Helene in the Southeast. You've got folks in the Gulf of Mexico, and I will say the Gulf of Mexico in the Southeast, fighting against the oil industry and their pollution. And, this industry has been enabled by the federal government for more than 100 years because of the tax code. So the tax code was created in 1910, 1911, and the oil and gas industry was there in 1913 for the first ever tax break to be created, called the intangible drilling cost. And so this industry has been receiving taxpayer handouts for well over 100 years. And it's over $170 billion over the next 10 years, just at the federal level, that this industry is going to be receiving from the federal government. That's not counting all of the state and local tax breaks that this industry has bought from local governments as they've bought the politicians. So this big fight that's coming up, called the tax reconciliation, the big tax fight, it is a fight that we can plan for. Right now, we are doing our damnedest to fight against the tsunami of actions that the Trump administration is creating for the oligarchs. We are there protesting, we are there litigating, we are there calling out Democrats. but we've also been drinking from a fire hose, waiting for something to hold on to. Well, we know that there is a fight coming. There is a fight before us that the Trump administration, that President Trump wants, that the oil and gas industry wants, that the oligarchs want. And that is the renewal of his tax cuts that he passed in 2017. So right now, over $5.5 trillion in tax breaks will expire at the end of this year. $5.5 trillion. If you want to talk about defunding the government, this is exactly what the Trump administration wants to do in the oligarchs. They want to pass this tax cut bill so that they have to cut other types of social spending. They want to increase defense at the cost of SNAP. They want to increase oil and gas subsidies at the expense of Medicaid. This is their big plan. And why is it their plan? It's their plan because they don't have the votes in the Senate to pass anything other than a tax bill. Tax reconciliation in the Senate means that they only have to get 50 votes to pass a bill. This is the same way that the Affordable Care Act was passed. This is the same way that the Inflation Reduction Act was passed. So they are putting all their eggs into the legislative basket when it comes to taxes because they are weak. President Trump and the Republicans are weak. They have a 3-vote majority in the House. They have a 3-vote or 2-vote majority in the Senate. They can't pass anything that requires Republicans to, and the Senate in particular, because they don't have the 60 votes. So they have to do it through tax reconciliation. And this is the time, tax reconciliations, where we can pick a fight with the oil and gas industry. Why? Because we already know that Charles Koch is going to spend $20 million to try to pass this tax bill and get the oil and gas subsidies expanded. We know that the American Petroleum Institute is already trying to get the oil and gas industry out of the bare minimum tax standard that they have to pay, which is about 15%. Right? We know that the industry is doing this. And so our response is to launch the coalition United to End Polluter Handouts. And this is a coalition of Our Revolution, Friends of the Earth, Public Citizen, Green Faith, Zero Hour, the Green New Deal Network, the Sunrise Movement, and many, many more. Our Revolution, already said that. The Hip Hop Caucus. Because we want to pick the fight. We want to pick the fight with the oil and gas industry at what they want the most, which is to maintain those subsidies. We want the industry to fight hard to maintain those subsidies. We want the industry to fight hard to defend what they have. Because if we don't pick the fight with them right now, they will just walk. They will walk up to Congress with their hat in hand, and Congress will give it to them. Right? So the United to End Polluter Handouts is this vast coalition that's trying to energize the oil and gas, the movement against the oil and gas industry. Right? Because right now, look, it's bad out there. Right? With President Trump cutting all these climate programs that we fought so hard to do. I don't know about you, but I want to cut something from that the oil and gas industry wants. I want to organize. I want to take these guys on, this industry on, and I want them to fight. I want them to lose billions of dollars in tax breaks. Because you know what will happen when we fight and we win, and when we organize and we win. If we repeal those tax breaks, we can remove and eliminate almost 60% of the planned production and exploitation that they're trying to do. So these tax breaks mean a lot to this industry, not only for their profitability, but it's their profitability to keep drilling, i.e., we want to keep the oil in the ground, no new drilling, right? And so we now know that we have a fight before us. And the fight is the tax reconciliation. We know how to organize. We have targets. We have to keep the Democrats strong on this because they want to cut deals with the oligarchs just as much as the Republicans have. We've seen this happen time and time again. So we have this opportunity to organize. We can actually go on the offensive. Right now we've been on defensive for the last 3 weeks, but it's time for us to go on the offensive because we know that this tax bill is coming up. There's a whole bunch of organizing materials on United to End Polluter handouts, and I encourage you to go to it. But I want you all to kind of think about this, is that we have an opportunity to keep the Democrats united. We have an opportunity to go on the offensive against the oil and gas industry, which is essential. We have an opportunity to energize the climate movement at this very moment when everything is being taken away from us. And we have this opportunity to take on, by picking a fight with the oil and gas industry, to take on the social license that the billionaires and the Trump administration have given them. And that's most important because if you think about everything that we're fighting right now, whether we're fighting to protect the planet from climate change, we're trying to fight for progressive issues such as, child health care or food or Medicare or Medicaid. You know who was the base funder of all these at some point? It was the oil and gas industry that was funding all of the activities that we believe in that create the social safety net and the progressive movement. It's been funded by all that opposition has been funded by the Koch brothers. So this is our opportunity. I hope you can join us. It is $170 billion that we're trying to cut. And I think we can win. And if we don't win, we will use this moment to gum up the tax reconciliation package. We don't need that many votes. And we will use this moment to keep the Democrats together and accountable to what we want, which is a safe climate for ourselves and our kids and our future.
Thank you, Eric Pica, President of Friends of the Earth. Eric, one question, just again, this was raised in the Q&A. How confident are you, given Democratic disarray, that we're going to be able to hold the line? And what is it going to take from the grassroots to make that a reality?
I'm not confident they'll hold the line. And that's why, everybody here on this call and progressives around the country need to be out there challenging the Democrats to hold the line. We can't ask them politely because we know what they'll say. Joseph, your intro was there. We have to hold Hakeem Jeffries accountable. We have to hold Senator Schumer accountable because at the end of the day, they want to cut deals. And the only way that we prevent them from doing that is by going out, organizing, and putting the steel in their backbones that they lack at this moment. And so we have to be out there in the streets organizing. There was amazing protest outside the Treasury building last week, protesting Elon Musk there. There was a pop-up protest with 4,000 people, which hasn't happened in years. That is what we have to do to strengthen and stiffen the spines of the Democratic Party because they have not been there yet. And organizing and challenging them is how we do it.
Eric Pica, President of Friends of the Earth, thank you for joining us, brother. And I want to bring up Aru Shiny AJ. She is the Executive Director of the Sunrise Movement, a leading youth-led climate powerhouse. Aru, welcome to our call. Tell us a little bit about what our coalition has planned going forward to get ready for this tax fight and pushing back on the opposition.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joseph. I want to start by actually grounding us a little bit in why the need for federal climate action is really critical right now. Because I know for me, for a lot of people I talk to, there's an impulse to say, you know what, things are impossible federally. Maybe it's just time to turn locally instead. Maybe we just can't win. And I think this is a really critical moment to actually not do that, which is not to undermine the absolute necessity and importance of local organizing and local actions. But I think it's a really important moment to fight federally for two reasons. One, Jamie really started by grounding us in the urgency of the climate crisis. I look at the news every week and I feel like I see a new statistic that scares me. Every time I remember that 2024 was the year that we first passed 1.5 degrees warming, I get a pit in my stomach about what that actually means. The truth is, we don't have the ability to cede the federal government to fossil fuel billionaires and fossil fuel executives. That is not the way the climate crisis works. We need the most powerful tools in this country at our disposal, and stopping climate change actually needs the federal government's full might and full power to do that, to build fast, high-speed rail across the country, to build an electric grid that actually works. We need to be able to build the type of power that can actually pass legislation after legislation after legislation. And not losing sight of that in this moment is critical so that we can remind each other what our government is meant to be for. But the truth is, if we don't actually use this moment to fight against the way that oligarchs and fossil fuel executives are seizing control of our government, we may not have a government to fight with in 4 years. And I see a lot of people talking in the comments about how this is not business as usual. And that's absolutely right. This is an absolutely dire moment to make sure that we don't cede control of our government. The fossil fuel industry has a plan. Eric laid it out really neatly. It is absolutely obscene that we are currently funding our own destruction. We are paying for fossil fuel companies to burn away our futures, to flood our homes, and then to get off scot-free and not be held accountable. I travel a lot and find scenes of climate disasters. I've talked to so many people who never thought that this would happen to them, and they are always shocked when they realize that they are paying taxes every year to fund their own destruction. It is cruel what the Republican Party is doing. It is obscene and it is unacceptable. And what that means is that this is an opportunity to actually lay out and expose Trump for who he really is. I saw someone say this in the chat earlier. Trump has a 53% approval rating right now. And the reason that he has such a high approval rating is that he was able to fool people into thinking that he fought for everyday people. Even though we know the truth, that he fights for oligarchs and billionaires and his friends, and he's corrupt to the bone and isn't fighting for everyday people. But he's decided to blame people's problems on trans people and immigrants to cover up for the fact that he and his billionaire friends are making their money off of all of our lives. And this fight in particular has the opportunity to expose that. And I say all of that to just be like, this is important because it could turn the tides of public opinion against Trump. Climate could do that. Trump's corruption could do that. And this fight is a way that we are actually turning the tides against Trump and building our power for the long haul. So I wanted to ground people in that. And the first thing that we're going to be doing in order to actually launch this campaign is that we have a press conference this Wednesday in the Federal Triangle. I think there's a link on the next slide, maybe. I'm not sure. And we also have a way for you to join our campaign. So there's a link, endpolluterhandouts.org/take-action. I will put it in the chat. We are going to be spending the next few, other people are putting in the chat already. Amazing. We're going to be spending the next few months making sure that legislators know that this is a critical priority, having Democrats hold the line against this tax bill. That means showing up at their offices, showing up during recess, going again and again and again. This is the way that we protected Medicaid from being rolled back. This type of organizing works. This is the way that the far right MAGA faction of the Tea Party faction of the Republicans took over the Republican Party. Do not underestimate the power of showing up at your representative's house over and over again and escalating on them. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to hold this line. We're going to make sure they know it's a critical issue. And we're going to use that to expose to the public Trump's corruption and strike a blow to the fossil fuel industry.
Aru, Shiny AJ, thank you so much. Tell us a little bit more about some of the direct actions that Sunrise has been doing. I think they've been really heartening to watch, and I think that'll help inspire people about what is to come.
Yeah, Sunrise volunteers have been mobilizing all across the country. Down in LA, our Los Angeles hub did a lot of actions trying to expose the role of the fossil fuel industry in causing the LA fires. The media was really underreporting on that. They were taking over outside of an oil facility for 5 days. They slept on the sidewalk, telling their stories. These were like fire survivors. In DC, several volunteers actually interrupted Chris Wright's hearing for Energy Secretary, talking about how he was actually a fossil fuel executive who was profiting off of our destruction and had no right to be in that position. And we're planning more. Direct action is a really key part of organizing. It shows that we are not going to back down. It forces politicians to look us in the eyes and understand what they're doing. And it forces their choices to be it's more inconvenient for them to make the wrong choices than to make the ones that they're making right now. That is what we are trying to do. We're trying to make it cost too much for them to screw us over.
And I would also say, I think it's a very simple premise for all of us. We are all taxpayers. This is our money, and we don't want it to go bankroll and make the the richest among us even wealthier. We don't want to reward uh, people who are polluting our planet and killing our fellow citizens with uh, extra tax breaks and extra loan guarantees and more leases and licenses to pollute. It really is in our hands. This is our money, and we should stop the massive transfer that Donald Trump is trying to engineer. It's a massive transfer of wealth from us, from we the people, to the big tech billionaires and the oil and gas billionaires and to Wall Street. And that's the thing. It's our money and we can stop it. And, and I want to give you a little secret. They don't tell you this, but the quickest way to get rich in the United States is to leverage tax dollars, whether it's contracts, loans, tax breaks. That's how the rich have gotten rich. It's not because they're smarter or they have some genius idea. They know how to game the system. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. And that's what the oligarchs that are around him are doing. So again, this campaign is strategic because we're going to block the money pipeline. We're going to make sure that this industry does not extract any more of our wealth in this moment. And it's an offensive fight that must be fought in this moment. We can't keep drinking out of the fire hose. We've got to go on the offense. So, Aru, again, thank you for joining us tonight. And I want to remind everyone who's in the DMV, we are doing a press conference tomorrow on Capitol Hill with Representative Ilhan Omar and other members of Congress to announce our campaign and to lay out our legislative demands. Again, that's going to be 1 o'clock tomorrow at the U.S. Capitol. If you're in the area, join us. And then I also believe this is going to be live streamed by the coalition itself, so you can catch it on socials. With that, I want to bring up our allies at Greenpeace. One point that I want to underscore in this moment is we understand that that our enemy is not just trying to take tax dollars, but they're also trying to silence our ability to fight back. They do that in multiple ways. We're going to see the weaponization of government from the DOJ to the FBI to the IRS. We're going to see state power used against activists in this next moment. But I want to also flag that we're already seeing the use of private power and state power against organizations like Greenpeace. And we need to also, in this moment, find common cause, because we can't let them take anybody off the playing field. Because if they take one organization off the field, it's open season on everybody else. So with that, I want to bring up Tim and Adrian with Greenpeace to tell us about the situation that they're in and how they're fighting back.
Yeah, thanks so much. Big thanks to Our Revolution for having us on, and major respect for everybody on this call right now. Thank you so much for taking your Monday night to come and work together and organize with people. Um, and it's so inspiring to hear about this new coalition that's launching to go after polluter handouts. Greenpeace, we are 1,000% on board with that. And I think, Eric said it was really important that we need to hold the Democrats accountable because, we, the people, are kind of the backstop. And that's one of the main themes I kind of wanted to talk about here tonight. And also, thank you, Aru, for talking about the protests and the direct actions that are going on. It's been really inspiring to see all across the country protests start popping up in DC, but everywhere else as well, and here in the Bay Area where I live. Um, but uh, as Joe said, and as many of you have heard, Greenpeace is facing a very serious lawsuit. And we are going to trial on February 24th in North Dakota, so that's just a couple weeks away. And this is a big lawsuit. And I know there's a lot going on right now. People and movements for justice are under threat and under attack. Communities are seeing the threat of deportation. There's a lot of bad things happening in the world. So you may be wondering, like what's the big deal with one lawsuit, right? But I think what I wanted to do is to say that the lawsuit that we're seeing is a blueprint that can be used against activists and against organizations all across the country. And we know that we're not going to get through this without the help and solidarity from all of you. And I think it's important to shine a light on these tactics that billionaires and corporations are using to silence dissent. So here's the basics of the lawsuit. Greenpeace is being sued for $300 million by the company behind the Dakota Access Pipeline, Energy Transfer. And this lawsuit is what's called a strategic lawsuit against public participation, or a SLAP suit. And it's been going on for more than 7 years. Lawsuit is designed to silence us, to prevent us from taking action, but we will not be silenced. So folks probably remember the Dakota Access Pipeline protests back in 2016, 2017. They were organized and led by the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and indigenous water protectors, and they were extremely powerful protests. Well, Energy Transfer's lawsuit's trying to erase the history of that indigenous leadership. Their theory of the lawsuit and the central argument is that it actually was Greenpeace and not the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, not the water protectors, that was the organizer behind the protests. And this is obviously nonsense and pretty racist, to be honest. And the main thing about the lawsuit is that, it accuses Greenpeace of things we did not do. But what's important for everyone else to know is that it goes directly after two of the pillars that support all of our activism and all of our work and all of our public advocacy, namely free speech and the right to protest. So, a bad ruling in this case, and there's going to be a trial, in North Dakota. It's going to last for about 5 weeks. But a bad ruling in this case would be far bigger than just Greenpeace. It could have dire repercussions for anyone who attends a protest or who dares to speak up and criticize the rich and powerful. The first few weeks of Trump 2.0 have made it clear that free speech and peaceful protests, they really are the backstop, and that they're what we can rely on when all the systems around us are failing. So, we feel like it's important to stand up for these things. Yeah, and it's been beautiful to see the sort of blossoming of protest against what Trump is doing. It feels like we're all starting to get our legs under us again. The other thing about SLAP suits is that they're a tool of people with deep pockets. So they're kind of a threat hanging over the head of anybody, any activist or any movement that criticizes a billionaire or a large corporation. And we're starting to see more and more of these SLAP suits pop up everywhere. You won't probably be surprised to hear that Elon Musk and Donald Trump use these tactics all the time. They've each filed multiple SLAP suits against their critics. For example, Elon Musk has sued Media Matters. He sued the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Trump once actually sued an author for $5 billion just for arguing that Trump was not as rich as he claimed. The case was dismissed, but I think it's an interesting example that even losing a case like that can cause tremendous harm to ordinary people and organizations. You should check out this quote from Trump after the case was dismissed. He said, "I spent a couple of bucks on legal fees, and they spent a whole lot more. I did it to make his life miserable, which I'm happy about. So that guy is of course, the president of the United States now. And of course, Trump has unleashed a new round of lawsuits against the media in recent months. He doesn't, he sues media companies when he doesn't like the coverage. So, for example, we've seen ABC has already settled a lawsuit. Meta has already settled a lawsuit, even when legal experts thought that the lawsuits were frivolous. Trump sued the Des Moines Register for a poll he didn't like. Paramount is currently being sued for $20 billion. Reportedly, Paramount is considering settling this lawsuit in order to get approval for a merger. So you can sort of see what's going on here, that this is a massive assault on the freedom of the press, and it has huge implications for all of us. And I'm worried that we're going to see more of this happen under this administration. But like we said, we the people, we're the backstop. We're the ones who will be here, and we'll be there protesting for freedom and for justice. And that's why we need people from all across the country to stand in solidarity with us as we go into trial for this lawsuit. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Adrian, who can tell folks how they can take action.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us. Like Tim said, my name is Adrian. I'm a mobilization director here at Greenpeace. And I'm here to talk a little bit about how you all can join us in fighting back against everything Tim just shared. And I know we're getting to the end of the call, so I'll keep this brief. We've spent the past few years, longer, almost 7 years, trying to get the word out about this $300 million lawsuit and get the word out about the larger fight around the attack on free speech and protests happening around the world at the hands of politicians and corporations. So, y'all, the thing is, corporations and big oil know that protest works, right? That's why they're trying to make the consequences too high for anyone to risk it. And that affects us all. They're trying to destroy our ability to speak out against what's wrong, and they're trying to silence us. But we're not backing down, we're getting louder. So we're going to be starting with a week of action next week, so the week before the trial starts. That's going to be packed with actions around the country and around the globe before this trial starts to make sure that the thousands of folks and over 400 organizations that signed our open letter, many of who are actually on the call right now, are heard. That's also why we're launching Protest on Trial, a series for democracy, and I'll post the link in here. I'll post it a couple of times for you all to learn more. Hopefully that pops up. This is going to be a weekly webinar series every Thursday starting on February 20th, and it's every week as the trial unfolds. So this is a QA you all on the call right now can join us. So each week, these sessions are going to bring inside updates from the courtroom and conversations with frontline activists, legal experts, and movement leaders on the broader threats and, more importantly, the strategies to fight back for protest, for free speech, and for democracy itself. Each week's going to have a different theme. So from No Dapple and the indigenous activism behind Standing Rock, the power of storytelling to make polluters pay, which we've talked about a lot tonight, lessons from other fights around the globe, and what movement leaders want us to do next to protect the heart of the movement. We have heard throughout tonight that folks are looking for what to do during this moment, right? This isn't just about Greenpeace, like Tim said. This isn't just about this one case. There's a lot going on right now in our communities, in our backyard, with those who we're organizing with, and folks are looking for ways to take action. And we thought a lot about what we want to be doing during this trial and what we want to be doing while this trial is happening day in and day out. And we knew that now more than ever, we need spaces to share our stories, like the places we're in tonight. Take collective action across movements and stay united in our fight. If corporations think they can quiet us with lawsuits right when we need protests and free speech more than ever, they have another thing coming. We're going to strengthen the very thing that they want to silence, and I need all of you all to join us. So please sign up for the link. Our first webinar is going to be next week, February 20th at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Here's a link that's clickable. And this will be happening again every single week while the trial happens. So instead of us staying quiet, we're going to be together. We're going to be telling our stories. We're going to be taking collective action about what's going on around us. And we're going to be pushing back as they fight against the free speech and protests that we need so much right now. Thanks, y'all.
Tim, Adrian, thank you both for speaking to our audience tonight. I want to encourage everyone to get involved in the fight. that Greenpeace is in, because it is a fight that affects all of us collectively in this moment. We know that both corporate power and state power are going to unify in this moment to make sure that our voices are not heard. And so it's imperative that we stand back. And with that, I want to just bring this call to a close. Again, I want to emphasize that our coalition, the new United to End Polluter Handouts Coalition, consisting of groups like Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace and Sunrise and Zero Hour and the Green New Deal Network. We're uniting to put the fossil fuel industry on its hind legs. And we believe that we have a strategic opportunity to do so as the tax fight gears up in March. And in order to prevail, we need everyone on this call to get active, because we need to make sure that Democrats hold the line and don't sell us out and sell our future out in the fights that are coming up. As Eric said, everyone's trying to cut a deal right now, but we need to make sure they cut a deal that stands for both people and the planet. And that means we've got to knock out subsidies for the fossil fuel industry and demand for their products. So again, important fight. Tomorrow we're going to be on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, we're going to be on Capitol Hill at 1 o'clock with U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, Melanie Stansbury, and other members of Congress to announce our campaign and to put every member of Congress on notice. You're either with the polluters or you're with us, we the people. And then after that, we want to invite everyone around the country to attend our Citizen Action Team training on Thursday evening at 8:30 p.m. We're going to provide you with information and training so that you can go forth and engage your elected officials in this moment, both Democrat and Republican. They need to hear from us that we're not going to stand idly by as the oligarchs take over our government and plunder our tax dollars. We need to make sure that we stick it to every elected official in this moment, because at the end of the day, we're going to be the last line of defense in this fight. And with that, I want to, again, thank everyone for joining us. I want to encourage you to get involved in the fight ahead. I know that what's happening in the news can be exhausting. It can be overwhelming. That being said, they want us. Donald Trump wants us to surrender. And, I was recently reading the book by Timothy Snyder on tyranny. And the first thing that Professor Snyder says that the dictator wants for us to pre-surrender, is to obey in advance. And that's what they want to do, is us to give up. But I'm here to tell you that our coalition is thinking 3 steps ahead, and we're committed to fighting to the very end. And so with that, I want to encourage folks in the green room here to unmute. And we're going to close our call like we always do, because it is fundamentally true. We're going to close with our slogan. When we organize,
we win.
when we organize,
We win.
when we organize,
We win.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. We'll see you on the front lines.
Record.